Every parent worries about their child's grades. But here's a question we don't often ask. Will your child live to 100 years of age?
In this special episode, two of the UAE's most influential voices, Jay Varkey, Deputy CEO of GEMS Education, and Alisha Moopen, Group CEO of Aster Healthcare, explore a question every parent must face. Are we preparing our children for exams or for 100 years of life?
You've just signed this partnership that really is going to put health at the heart of education.
You want to make sure the quality of that 100 years is solid.
Children are in our schools 60% of the time, and we have a duty to them to create good habits throughout that day.
What's the point of having great grades if your health is not at par?
Grades are important, but without health, none of that is possible.
What is the single most alarming trend that you both see in children today? If you could fix one thing tomorrow morning for all children, what would you pick and why? If you could just hardwire just one habit into each child, what would it be? What simple practical steps can schools and families take to improve a child's mental health? Screens. I hate screens.
You can have the screen time, but after that, you've got to go and do your sport. I think that's about it.
Technology is not the problem, it's just how we use it. We really are calling it a wellness movement. If you're able to catch them young, these good habits will last a lifetime.
This is more than a partnership. It's a promise to raise a generation that will live to 100 and live well. Because the greatest exam is life itself.
Every parent worries about their child's grades. But here's a question we don't often ask. Will your child live to 100 years of age? And if your child is going to live to 100, are we preparing them for those years as much as we are for exams? Because parents, of course, usually obsess over grades, ECAs, timetables, targets. But are we thinking enough about what our children eat at school, how much they move, how long they're sitting for? Today, we're joined by two of the UAE's most influential leaders. We've got Jay Varkey. He's the Deputy CEO of GEMS Education. He leads one of the world's largest private education groups with over 140,000 students. And Alisha Moopen is Managing Director and Group CEO of Aster Healthcare. Now, she oversees one of the region's biggest healthcare networks, serving millions across hospitals, clinics, and pharmacies. Together, they're going to help us explore how health and education can combine to prepare children not just for their careers, but for 100 years of life. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining me.
Our pleasure.
Do you think we are preparing our children to live for those 100 years?
It's incredible, the number of people who are now living to 100. It does beg all of us to ask this question. You live to 100, but how well is this life? You want to make sure the quality of that 100 years is solid, right? So if you ask me, are we ready? Are our kids ready? I do think that it's not a straightforward answer. When you look at locations like UAE, where you see the kind of progressive steps that the government, the public health systems, educators are doing for children, you see a very positive future ahead. Even the recent announcement about reducing the school year so that kids have more time for balance, for other activities, it really talks about how important resting and other activities are beyond, like you mentioned, about grades, about just focusing on the 100 in your marks, right? I think that's a very positive sign. But I mean, I literally just came back from the US last week, and it was a very different scenario there. You were talking about people giving sugary drinks to children. I was shocked at the size of portions in the dorms, in the schools, at the restaurants, even fine dining restaurants, your food is so much. So if you're used to having that much food, how do you teach about portion control? So all of these little things build our habits, right? So I think it does have to happen at so many levels, from family at a micro to the government at the macro level. And we feel very blessed that Dubai, government, educators, healthcare, all are coming together, showing a very positive kind of movement towards not only getting to the 100, which science is making possible, but making it a healthy 100. I think that's the goal.
We mentioned educators there, of course, Jay. That brings you in very smartly. How do you feel about how much progress is being made here in the UAE?
Where we are in the UAE, we are very, very lucky. We're blessed with innovation. We're blessed with wellness at our front door, if you want to call it that. But I think we as educators, children are in our schools 60% of the time, and we have a duty to them to create good habits throughout that day. It's not just about the grades. It's not just about the education aspect, but really teaching them how good habits can help them with longevity and set them up for the future.
Grades and health there. Which one do you think, Alisha, parents are prioritizing now? And do you think they're prioritizing the right thing?
Grades continue to be the focus for parents. And I think it's natural because when you're small, you're largely healthy. When kids are doing well and they're healthy and they're in school, of course, the focus from the parents, me as a parent, I'm talking here right now, I would tell my children, how are you doing? How are your grades? How are you performing relative to your peer group? With the way you're seeing changes to health, right? When things like mental health is becoming a looming issue, when you've got things like ADHD, device addiction, so many new things that maybe our parents and we didn't have to deal with growing up. It's very important that teachers, parents all start kind of making it very clear that both of these are equally important. Because what's the point of having great grades if your health is not at par, right? Whole goal as a society is to set our children up for the future and set them up for taking the world forward. And for that, we need both of it. You cannot have a sick person ever be able to be in a position to be leading companies, organization, communities. So I think very important to reiterate how these two go completely hand in hand, in my opinion.
Jay, you work for, one of the biggest school groups in the world. I would expect you to say it's grades.
It's a tough question, mainly because parents do provide their children our care to deliver results and get them to university. But the interesting thing is that universities aren't just looking at just grades. It's actually around the holistic aspect of these children. It is, what do you do as community service? What do you do? Have you tried on an entrepreneurial venture? Even if you have failed, have you supported a charity? Have you traveled? Have you done a sport to a high level? There is a recent study, I think, done by Harvard. The weightage of actually grades is probably about 30%, and the rest is all about the additional attributes that children have. So grades are important to a certain extent, but I think without health, none of that is possible.
Just to go with what Jay was saying, like as a parent, I think all of us focus on which school do our child get into eventually. And especially with the firstborn, I think it's even more pronounced. So I know I was going through exactly the same situation end of last year, making sure my son gets into a good university. And then interestingly, in Feb, my son had a ACL tear. He was playing basketball, Jay, in one of your schools. He was in Jumeirah College, and it was right before his A-level exams. The minute that happened, I was like, wait, the grades don't matter. I just want him to get better, be able to walk, be able to move, be able to play basketball. It's funny how for us as parents, until something like this happens, we just don't give it as much of a priority. Again, I go back to saying it's because largely they're healthy other than these incidents.
It's really interesting to hear your sort of personal experience there. And it is interesting how it sort of changes your perspective. Obviously, in sort of exam season, parents don't mind their children potentially being a bit stressed in that situation. But we are seeing children struggle increasingly with sort of lifestyle-related issues. There's weight, there's early metabolic markers, there is that stress. What is the single most alarming trend that you both see in children today?
One thing I do see is trying to get that functional discipline, just that routine. I think we don't see that as much as we would like to, and that is something that we just need to inculcate within our kids. So you can get let's say, addicted to screens and so on and so forth. And everything should be done in moderation. So even if you are doing screen time, it's just a natural instinct to say, okay, I've done enough. I need to go out and go play my sport now. And just not to let that slide. And I think that's when we say, oh, it's fine, let them have another. And I think that's when it goes off kilter a little bit. And from my own experience, I've got 4 kids. So logistics is a huge challenge, as you can imagine. And them being in London, being educated, try moving them around. But our focus is really on a lot of after-school activities, sport, there's fencing, rugby, football. So that is a non-negotiable for my family. I am lucky also, my wife is Japanese, so portion control is not a problem, even for myself, which is good. But because they live a great lifestyle, Japanese people, because food, nutrition, good habits are inculcated from such a young age at the school level, and parents and the whole communities are bought into it. And that is how they sustain their age and their longevity.
We can't just say it's sitting is a huge issue. People are spending so much time just on their bed, on their couch, in front of the PlayStation. How do you get them to move 7,000, 10,000 steps? How do you kind of make this part of their daily routine? I think sometimes it's easier in cities like London because you're forced to kind of move, right? Here, because of the weather, the temperature, the comforts that we have available, you almost have to make a conscious effort that you kind of infuse it into part of your daily routine as well. We're in such a blessed, comfortable life, but then there are other things you have to actively incorporate then into your life. And we cannot underestimate how important these lifestyle choices are. And like Jay says, like what's at home makes such a big difference. What's at school makes such a big difference. You're very lucky your wife is Japanese, so you're already living the beyond 100 life, right? But how does everyone kind of inculcate that? So it's all about physical, mental, emotional health. I think those are the three pillars we always talk about. Physical is a bit easier in that aspect. At least you see the biomarkers, you can test for things. I think with a lot of interventions that we're talking about as Aster and GEMS as well, those are the things we said, well, let's do. But how do you make healthcare more fun? How do you make it engaging? How do you make these gamify things, right? I think that's the future.
Aster and GEMS, you've just signed this partnership that really is going to put health at the heart of education. I want to know what it means to both of you, how it feels to have signed this agreement personally, that there is going to be this ongoing relationship, this ongoing partnership.
Ever since Alisha and I met, I think it was in January, and then we started ideating this concept where there is a marriage between education and healthcare that supports both the families, really, very simply. And what we thought was, how can we inculcate good habits to children? That's really kind of the baseline. And just like I have subject matter experts for maths or science, Aster is my subject matter expert for wellness. Very simply, they've got amazing hospitals, and in all honesty, if it wasn't for Alisha and her care at the Medcare hospitals that they created, I would have lost my best friend. I have a huge gratefulness to you for that. And so in those kind of small amounts, if you don't teach young kids how to behave, have good habits, and learn those skills so that they can take it forward with the right kind of partner, I think we're not doing the right thing in our schools.
It must be exciting, Alisha, to know that you're going to be in so many of GEM schools, considering your children have gone to the schools.
And myself.
And yourself? No, yes. I didn't know that.
I was at Mordenheim myself, so I'm a GEMS product myself. So this is so, heartwarming for me to be able to sit here and put these two brands together. It's just going to be so nice to be able to do something so meaningful.
You're going to have these clinics, these offices within the schools. And the idea there is that you'll be encouraging children to develop good habits. If you could just hardwire just one habit into each child, what would it be?
It's a bit hard to isolate and say this is one habit, right? Because like what Jay was saying, some children love moving and you don't need to kind of push on that element, right? But I remember being in school when I was, before I was in Morden, and I remember we would have PE once a week. I'd have maths like every single day. It was not something that came natural to kind of talk about moving and doing some of these things, right? So I think what's very important and what's very interesting about this partnership also is it's not, one is the children, but who are the children spending, and the biggest catalyst for them, the teachers. How do we really bring them into kind of empowering them with what is important for the children's health, for their own health, right? So doing modules, being up to date in terms of how we need to be thinking about physical health, how do we need to be thinking about mental health, how we need to be thinking about that emotional security and safety in schools and beyond. So I think going with the teachers is very important for us because they are really the architects for our children themselves. And then really making it more interesting for the children. There are things which are done as part of routine. I think like what Jay was saying with screens, devices, you have issues on eye health. Now, these are significant problems. So how do we make sure we're screening more proactively so that we're picking up any diseases or onset of any diseases early, whether it's dental hygiene, because again, if you're eating the wrong things, at least you pick up so that you're able to kind of intervene quicker. So I think it's a whole combination of interventions and engagement activities with the teachers and the students and the families. I mean, it's a movement. We really are calling it a wellness movement. And if you're able to catch them young, if you're able to instill these good habits when they're small, I think we believe it will last a lifetime, 100 and beyond.
Teachers have a lot of power. Good example is when my daughter's not behaving, and I always say, I'm going to tell your teacher, and then she gets a 9. So if used the right way, and you can actually inculcate good habits, and they're right front and center with the children. So using that avenue to really inculcate good habits for the children, making sure they're eating the right thing, making sure they're moving their bodies, making sure they're thinking the right way, and that is how you're going to create this ecosystem. And hopefully the word starts spreading.
Is that a key part of this partnership for you, that the teachers will also be able to access this healthcare?
Yes, so the Beyond 100 campaign, but what we're deploying in our schools is to train the teachers to be able to deploy these good habits to children outside of just education and curriculum hours and throughout the day. But then the Aster partnership will allow us to bring the foundations, where you have that subject matter experts. What are the other interesting things that are happening in healthcare or wellness that we can support our teachers and train them to say, oh, this could be something new that's happening. And these are kind of new ways of kind of exercising or moving your body that really invigorate children to start their day properly. So these are the kind of assets that we would like to share within our partnership and to be able to take it to the next level.
The Beyond 100 initiative, it sounds absolutely brilliant. It focuses on move more, nourish better, think deeper, and rest fully.
The interesting thing is we're born with this body and you don't come with a manual on how to use it and how to operate it. And really, that's what we're trying to do with this partnership, right? How do you tell the teachers and how do you kind of equip the children to have the toolkit to understand yourself? Honestly, we have to learn to listen to our own body more. Now, whether it's our body that's, whether it's my ankle, my knee, my mind, what is it that I need to pay more attention to? What is it that I'm getting? Because the body is a very smart system. It keeps giving you signals. When things are not working, if something's aching, it means it's trying to tell you hey, pay attention to me, right? So this is what we want to kind of create as listening devices for our teachers and the children as well. And this is what teachers do, like you said, they pick up on these little things in school. How do we make the children also be able to pick up on these things? So they realize, wait, I'm not eating the right things. I need to nourish better. Wait, I'm not moving. I haven't moved for the last 6 hours. I need to move more. We are in this world where we're all about productivity. Let's do more. Let's do more. We'll sleep when I'm dead. I mean, come on. We cannot be teaching our children that. That was our generation, and we're trying to unwind and unlearn some of these things as well. Very important for us to say that all of those 4 things are equally important, if you ask.
I mean, Jay, Beyond 100, it's the move more, nourish better, think deeper, rest fully, the area of focus that you think needs the most attention, and why?
My kids wake up so early and they have severe lack of sleep. And if they could rest more, because I think that's when your whole body and brain heals at that point. So I think rest would be an ideal, one thing I would definitely push on.
If you could fix one thing tomorrow morning for all children, what would it be? What would you pick and why? I know what my answer would be. Screens. I hate screens.
I get why you say that, because you do get addicted. It's kind of that dopamine effect. It's quite easy to scroll, and I can blame me for it as well. I do. Sometimes you go to that doom scrolling and so on and so forth. That is not good. I think it's just finding, again, going back to what I mentioned initially, is about everything in moderation. So you can have the screen time, but after that, you got to go and do your sport. And I think that's a balance. You can't also take it away, because that is also going to be the future. So if you don't set them up for that, you're going to make them fail on that. So they do have to learn the intricacies of what the world is going to be going forward, because those careers don't exist. They have to actually learn about more like media literacy, understand what is real content, what is fake content, what is empathy, the social aspect. And as long as you can harness that along with the screen, you got a very powerful human going forward.
I was actually speaking to one of the leaders in wellness and consciousness, Dr. Deepak Chopra. And he was saying technology is not the problem. It's just how we use it. How do we kind of set our children and ourselves to use it when we use it for work every single day. Our organizations are growing at exponential speed because of this technology that we are unlocking as well. So like what Jay said, we can't say we will inhibit and not have them have access to it. But I think moderation is important.
From your view, what simple practical steps can schools and families take to sort of improve a child's mental health each day?
I truly believe resilience is one of those skills people would earlier talk about, is inbuilt. It is a muscle you can develop. And I think this on mental health is particularly needed, right? Because stress is going to be a part of our lives, part of our children's lives. I mean, I literally had my 6-year-old wanting to organize a play date. And he asked me, he's like, he gave me the kid's name and got me the mother's number and said, Mom, can you organize a play date for me? I said, sure. So I wrote to this mom and I said, listen, can we do this next week after? And this was in February, right? And she writes back saying, how about end of June?
No.
I was like, why? Oh, so because this kid is busy. He's so busy with classes that he doesn't have time till school year ends to do a play date. We are putting so much pressure on our children. Knowingly, unknowingly, we're trying to make them competitive. It's so important for us as parents, the teachers, the healthcare community, about having the conversations, because everyone starts at a different stage. I know my son, no matter what I said to him, he does not get impacted. But when I'm speaking to my 14-year-old daughter, it's a very different conversation on stress and resilience and managing the anxiety around performance. It's very important that we work together because there is no one size fits all. Keep the dialogue going, build resilience in their thinking as well, so that they develop it as an attitude and as a muscle going forward.
There is a rather lovely tradition in preparing a meal at home, and we all know that it's so much healthier to do that. And of course, here in the UAE, the government is conscious of that. There has, been that sugar tax that's just been introduced to try to reduce the amount of sugar that we're all eating. And of course, that's so important for the children.
Sugar is honestly one of the biggest killers, right? So you have to really applaud the UAE government. They're so progressive in taking these steps, and these are hard decisions to do, right? So to be able to say that, no, we want to be talking about healthier societies. And these are key steps that they do to enable that at a policy level comes in, and our children are benefiting. All of us are benefiting.
I mean, there are very strict rules in schools about what food is allowed, aren't there?
Yes, everything's got to be approved by the municipality, and there's a process through that. I think, again, if you ever want to change kind of the menu and so on and so forth, there's a full process on what you have to do and get the appropriate approvals. But again, we just try and find the right kind of palate, what's healthy. Portion control, I think, is a really big thing. And trying to, change or conceptualize that in schools, where you do have the right kind of portion control. You have your colorful foods, as you can imagine. But really trying, again, educate the children. It's not just for now, it's actually for later. What are you picking when you go to university or when you're working? What are you picking? What are the choices you're making? And just teaching those children about choices, the right choices.
I'm personally really excited about this initiative, this partnership, is because I had an experience with my child when he was at nursery. He was only about 2.5. And unfortunately, he developed cancer. It was Burkitt's lymphoma, which is a very curable cancer. But it starts growing and kills within 6 weeks. And it was the nursery nurse, so he was 2.5, who spotted the problem. He had a tummy ache. He went into the school nursery to see the nurse, and she, felt his tummy. And she decided at that point that it was hard, and a child's tummy shouldn't be hard. And she rang me at work, and I was, I'm a busy mom. I was, and I was like, she's sort of interfering. She rang me. She said, "You've got to take him to the doctor today." And I went, "Oh, Nurse Jane, I'm really busy. Do we need to do it today?" She's like, No, I really think you should take him to the doctor today. And as a consequence, we had the diagnosis and he had the treatment, and it took a very long time, but he is now 11 and strong and healthy. And it is thanks to that school nurse. So I cannot tell you how thrilled I am that you guys are doing this partnership, because I've seen firsthand that school staff, be they the nurse or the teachers, are often the hidden doctors in our lives. I mean, I feel terrible that I didn't spot it myself, but this wonderful professional within the UAE school system did. And so I'm really encouraged to hear about how this new model is going to equip the teachers and, of these early warning signs of, not necessarily something as serious as cancer, but, if they've got, early onset diabetes. I mean, there's millions of things that children can get, unfortunately. And so, Alisha, how is it going to work within the schools?
First of all, thanks, Georgia, for sharing that. And it's such a powerful story. And you're right, it really talks about tying two important pillars of society together. There are two parts to it. One is prevention is better than cure. How do you equip teachers and students all to kind of do the right things to take care of them longer, better? The other one is about detection. And early detection is prevention, right? Or early detection is saving lives. So how do you really pick up on these signals, what's happening, and building a very strong ecosystem and this dialogue between the teachers and the healthcare professionals? So all of these different parts on the physical health, on the mental health, on the emotional health. There are student ambassadors that will be coming into the system. There'll be teacher awards, seeing that in each of the year groups, which teachers are kind of evangelizing this even more, right? Because it is about being those catalysts. It is about making this a priority. Just as we talk about grades, how do we talk about how you're feeling today, right? We do these check-ins, and the teachers not only talk about how well are you doing in your homework, but how are you feeling, right? And they're doing this, it's getting incorporated, but we kind of work together with the doctors so that as science is advancing, these conversations are also progressing at the same level. So I think that's really the whole goal and the genesis of this partnership.
Anything that can help them advance their own skills and also learn about new things, I think is always quite fascinating. And I think within the school, it's kind of a tripartite kind of relationship. You got the school, you got the teacher, and you got to have the parent. So one thing that through this whole process is to kind of understand the child at home as well. So if there are issues, if there are, even positives, but really kind of understand the child holistically, not just at school, but also at home. And then that gives more power and data to the teacher, as well as the school. So meaning, we can understand, okay, what are their habits? What are their eating habits? Have they slept well? And so on and so forth. So that it kind of becomes a wraparound kind of understanding of what the child is and really being able to support them through that journey going forward. So it's quite an exciting partnership. And this is just the start of many in the healthcare. And we're really grateful for this with Aster.
Beyond the pupils, what will be also changing for the teachers so that they can role model those healthy habits at school?
It is really about a ripple effect,
Yes.
Georgia, right? So it starts with the teachers for themselves first.
Yes.
You can't care for others if you're not taking care of yourself. Teachers are taking care of themselves. They're taking care of their own families. They're taking care of the children. So how do you kind of wrap everything around, right? They need to know what's happening, what is best for them, how are they taking care of their own health, what are their best habits they need to take care of, which can then pass on to the children as well. So I think that's really, our basic principle in life is healthiness is happiness. You cannot be happy if you're not healthy. And we want our children to be happy, healthy. We want our teachers to be in that positive frame of mind. So we're starting something called Teacher Days. Teachers are also really sort of busy. They don't they don't spend as much time looking after themselves because they're so busy thinking about all the students in the class, right? So how do we have fast-track appointments for them, make sure that we are helping them in their own screening interventions for their families as well? So we really create a community around it. So like I said, it's really about a well-being movement and a wellness movement where we really say we take the whole community along.
We all know that here in the UAE, they've got Vision 31, which really focuses on how children and adults can develop, how you can live healthy and happy lives. How does this initiative tie in with that strategy?
So, Georgia, I think it fits in and dovetails very nicely what UAE's Vision 2031 is, right? Because all we're talking about is building those tiny habits that go a really long way in sort of setting the right foundation for the children, for the community as well. So I think it's about empowering our students. And that's exactly what the Vision 2031 is about. How do you realize your full potential? Again, be your healthy self so that you can actually work on your goals and realize those dreams as well.
And ultimately, it's about creating an avenue or an ecosystem where human capital can thrive. And, UAE has always been a function of bringing human capital in. But now I think the vision is going to take them to another level where they're going to be sending human capital out. And that's very powerful.
Sometimes one of the things we tell with children is it's so fleeting, right? Everything is temporary. We can change our cars, we can change our houses, we cannot change our bodies. So how do we really kind of make sure people understand and children understand right from when they're young how important these decisions that we're making at, 6, 8, 10, we're seeing all these childhood obesity numbers rise. You're seeing the mental health numbers rise. So I really hope when we sit again in 5, 6 years' time, Jay, we're talking about these numbers coming down, right? So we can have that positive impact and be talking about how much more holistically well-developed the children are.
Let's throw ahead even further. When that child is 30 years old, when they are 60 years old, they have come out of the GEMS education system. They received all sorts of wonderful health education thanks to Aster. What will that child look like?
Interesting question. Their 60s will be their new 40s. They'll be living longer. They'll be living healthier. I believe there's going to be a component of family. I believe those families will come together, congregate together in a different way, I think, in those times.
Jay used a word earlier, which I love, thrive. And it is really about seeing the generation of tomorrow thrive. At 30, at 60, I like the idea of 60 being the new 40 of, And it's really, science is making so much of this possible right now. But it's very important that we are adopting what science is throwing at us. Otherwise, it really doesn't matter, right? So how do we make sure that this becomes part of how the children operate and how the system operates as well? So I see a thriving generation ahead for this part of the world, definitely.
Will your child here in the UAE, growing up here in the UAE, will they live to 100?
I think my children will live to 100. And I think it's all possible.
I definitely think our children will live to 100 and beyond. I do think we ourselves as a generation will live to 100.
Thank you to both of you. That has been such a wonderful conversation. Thank you for taking the time to chat to me. It is truly an absolutely wonderful partnership. Ultimately, the biggest test is living a long and happy life. So it is wonderful to hear about how that's going to be developed right here in the UAE. Now, if our children are indeed going to live to 100, then the decisions that we make today about schools, about health, about our habits, really will decide how well they live during those years. Jay, Alisha, thank you for telling us how the UAE is preparing not just for graduates, but for the future generation.